Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's that time of week again, the Power Rankings. I want to say thank you to all you supporters out there. It's been an awesome season so far. There's a lot of you guys that are watching that are not subscribed yet, so please, guys, we're coming in at the magical number of 420. So, you gotta smash that like button. But guys, we're just gonna jump right into it. A little bit of shifts going around, but one thing that is never gonna be shifting, I don't think, all season long. We have the Oakland A's at the bottom, 1-3 against the New York Yankees, 1-3 against Texas. They managed to pick a win against the division rival Texas Rangers, but guys, this is turning into quite the circus. If you saw some of the highlights in the Texas series, it's getting pretty wild. Sell the team, it's chance everywhere. This team's on pace to be the worst team in MLB history, and to go along with that, it's been a disaster with the fans and the ownership group. It's just ugly. I couldn't imagine what it's like to be an A's fan, let alone a player playing for that team. It's going to be a long season for them. Hopefully, sooner, greener pastures are to come over in Vegas. Next up, Kansas City Royals. They had a winning series to kick things off against the White Sox, 3-1. So I kind of talked about it last week. Even though they lost the series to the A's, I do find them to be the better team. Kind of saw that in that first series. But then they ended the week off getting swept by the Brewers. Kind of what we're expecting. We're expecting them to pick up some wins here and there. Their offense some days looks good, some days completely shut out. Same with the pitching, goes both ways, right? Number 28, we got the Miami Marlins. 2-1 against Arizona, 1-2 against Cincinnati. Just kind of like 50-50. This team continues to be one of the worst run differentials in the league, yet somehow has a decent record. Again, I've talked about this most weeks. They're definitely performing above expectations. I do expect them now at this point to be the bottom of this division. Or 27, we got the Rockies, 2-1 against Pittsburgh, 1-2 against Philly. So they went 3-3 overall against the Pennsylvania teams. But guys, I don't know if you saw it, that line drive that went back at the pitcher completely fractured his skull. It was pretty bad, tough thing to watch this week for the Rockies. So all our thoughts and prayers are obviously with that player. Hopefully he can get a speedy recovery, but the Rockies still have a long way to go. This division is out of their reach, in my opinion. Number 26, moving up a couple of spots, I think. 2-1 against San Fran. And then they lost to the Mets over the weekend. But Washington, they're just kind of like a team that's going under the radar. I think they catch a couple of teams by surprise throughout. But overall, they're going to lose more than they win. I don't really think there's much to say about them. If you're a Washington fan watching this, drop a comment below, something that we should be watching it for this national team. Something to keep us excited the rest of the season. That'd be cool. Number 25, we got the Cardinals, 2-1 to kick things off. And then they're in this series against Boston, the third game of the series, Sunday night. Of course, we filmed this while the evening game's going on. That game just getting underway. They're 2-0 against Boston. Both games against Boston so far, ninth inning comebacks. They were on pace to possibly have a very atrocious week after a big series win against those Cubs. They looked for disaster. They avoided disaster. So right now they're 4-1 on the week. We need them to start doing this. They're only 5 games back from a wild card spot. Can you believe, considering how bad their season started, how close they are to a playoff spot? Cardinals need to keep this going. I think I have them next week. They're playing 2 big series against the Dodgers and the Milwaukee Brewers. So if they can come out of that series, I know it's 7 games. I forget which one they have 4 against. But if they come out of that week with 5 wins, we're going to see them move up back to kind of more respectable territory. Otherwise, they could be pretty much put to bed by those teams. So keep your eye on that. Really looking forward to that Brewers-Cardinals series. It's going to be fun. 24, we got the Giants. 1-2 against Washington, 1-3 against Arizona. Just like not a great week for Giants fans. Giants have had a pretty rough season. Looked like over the prior 2 weeks they were starting to come back around to be a little more competitive, but this week against 2 mediocre teams, losing both, just going to set them back, and they're at risk of coming to this bottom row with, I think the Cardinals, the most opportune team that could possibly do it, but really the Rockies and the Nationals, I could see them pulling it off too. Number 23, we got the Reds continuing to play pretty good. 2-1 against the Mets, 2-1 against Miami. Like, they're winning series, and they're kind of going under the radar for most people on this year. Arguably, you're going to see in the next couple of rows, you could probably use the Reds up. They're in this division where it's not out of the question that they could win it. Seems to be no complete runaway. While the Brewers seem to be a little bit ahead, they're not running away, and they're going to play a lot of games against these division rivals, obviously. And if they win those, they're going to be in the hunt. So keep your eye on the Reds. I think this is probably as low as they will go on these standings. Number 22, we got the White Sox 1-3 against Kansas City, 1-2 against Houston. Really, they could be lower, but they beat the Reds last week in that series. So I'm kind of giving them a little bit of the edge there. They showed a lot of offense in a couple of these games this week, as well as last week. Still holding hope that they can be there. Their run differential is ugly. Their division, also ugly. Only shot they have at it is to make it as a division win, with Minnesota only being like .550 win percentage. It's within their reach, but they got to start turning around now. They got to start playing .600 baseball. A lot of games to go, but they got to start now. 21. We got the Guardians 1-2 against Detroit, and 2-1 against LA. Like a .500 week, it's not going to get it done for this Guardians team, who had struggled coming into this week, playing two teams that if they wanted to show they were getting back on track, two teams that I have ahead of them in the standings, they have to put up a big week, and they only put up .500. They kind of beat up on this Angels team that did not seem to have it today specifically. Almost blew it though. That 3-run home run by Naylor managed to squeak out a 1-run win against the Angels, but almost blew in that 9th inning. So a lot of concerns with Cleveland. I don't see them being able to sneak into the playoffs like they did last year, so they're kind of on the outside looking in down here. Number 20. 2-1 against Cleveland, 1-2 against Seattle. Kind of the same story, but Detroit seems to have a little bit more momentum than Cleveland does. Coming into the week, they hadn't lost a series to anyone that was outside of the American League East. Of course, this weekend they lost to Seattle, stopping the sweep today on Sunday, which they got to be somewhat excited for. I like what they have. They have some momentum going. The pitching, definitely with Boyd back in the starting lineup, it's going to be rough. The pitching definitely does not have the depth there for them to be too competitive. And while they're in reach of the division, still don't really feel it myself. Number 19, dropping like a fly, like a rock, whatever you want to call it. 1-2 against Cincinnati, 2-1 against Washington. .500 week against two teams that are way below them. They were a top row team not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, and I would have expected a 4-2 week, 5-1 week for a top team against those two teams, and the Mets just don't seem to have it. Their offense has just dried up completely this season. A lot of concerns there. I don't know what to say. It's not what they expected to see coming in this season. They're quite a ways out, and they got a couple teams to hop in their division. They're lucky that they can beat up on these lower teams, but they got to turn it around here. Next up, Arizona. It's the Diamondbacks, 1-2 against Miami, and then they had a nice series against San Fran. So they lost to Miami, sure. You're going to lose to teams that are worse than you throughout the season. It's just the way it's going to be. But to bounce back and really beat up on San Fran over the weekend, it's big. Having their aces be aces throughout the season so far has really helped them, keeping them in the hunt. I talked about this earlier. I was getting flack at the beginning of the season, how they started off so hot. They were leading the division. It's only a matter of time for things to even out. It looks like they evened out a bit. They're a little bit above .500, so you got to be excited. Arizona's in there. This wild card in the National League appears like it's going to be wide open. Right now, there's like 6 teams within 3 games. It's pretty intense. Keep your eye. I think the American or the National League here is going to be super, super exciting down the stretch. Number 17, we got the LA Angels, 1-2 against Houston, 1-2 against Cleveland. Probably could put them lower. Honestly, they're just kind of looking rough, and it seems to be the same old story for these Angels every single year. Everyone, I think, has hope that they're going to be something. They want to see Ohtani be successful. People want to see Trout be successful, but just never seems to come together. They never get this huge momentum going. And the pitching continues to be questionable outside of their Cy Young candidate Ohtani. So right now they're number 17, kind of sitting there floating, waiting what's going to happen. Is the floor going to fall out like it always seems to do for the Angels? Are they going to be competitive? Like, I want to see what they got in them because right now it's not there. 16, Seattle making a little jump over those Angels, going 1-2 against Texas, 2-1 against Detroit. Just look at these two teams when they match up against each other. I think they must be playing each other rather soon coming up. I think Seattle just matches up better. I would take Seattle in a best of 3, best of 4. my money would be on Seattle, so that's why I got them a little bit higher. But overall, looking at standings, looking at the grand scheme of things, they're fairly equal. Number 15, we got the Pittsburgh Pirates, 1-2 against Colorado, 1-2 against Baltimore. Ever since they had that hot streak, it's been pretty rough pickings for them. They really stole a big win when Kelly pitched an amazing outing today against Baltimore to avoid the sweep. Managed to pick up 2 wins this week. It's time for Pittsburgh to get back in the winning ways, or they're going to start falling back down, because this middle of the pack here is really compressed. And too many losing weeks in a row, you're going to see yourself in the bottom of the second bottom row here. It's going to be rather quick. Number 14, 1-2 against the Cardinals, 1-2 against Minnesota. And it's the same story here. Like, these two teams started off a little hotter than the other ones. Like, these ones started slower, but it seems to be shifting. These guys are really cooling down, and like all it takes is Detroit to continue to be hot, and Detroit's going to be here instead of them. Just keep your eye on it. It's not a lot of shift this past week. I'm ready to pull the trigger on a couple of these teams. I just want to see what this next week's going to look like. But this middle is starting to be more of a compact middle. The top's starting to be a little more compact. It was so close at the beginning, but it's starting to spread out a bit. We know who the bottom row is. We are starting to sort out who the bottom second half row is. But now we're talking who's the real playoff contenders, who's the real pretenders. And right now, number 13, San Diego Padres, 1-2 Miami, 0-3 against the Dodgers. And that 1-2 is in Minnesota. Rough week for the Padres. They're really starting to be one of those pretenders that I kind of alluded to at the beginning of that. And they're not winning. They just seem to be a team that haven't figured it out. I'm starting to believe that they're not gonna figure it out. That's what it's starting to look like. 2 back-to-back series losses to the Dodgers now in back-to-back weekends. Got to be pretty disappointed in that. A lot of work to be done in Padre land. They're on the outside right now of the playoffs looking in. Number 12, 3-0 against Oakland, and then they had a nice 2-2 series with Tampa Bay. A little bit of a bounce back week I like with the Yankees. I kind of beat them up last week, dropped them quite a bit, and now I'm going to put them back up. And I think this has got to be a power rankings first. We're going to have the worst team in a division in the top 2 rows. I don't think we've ever seen that before. So that's something new and interesting. But the Yankees, they're going to keep rolling. They have a 4-game series now against the Blue Jays, which if they can pull that off, they're right back in the hunt after I thought they had the floor fall out. Number 11, we had Boston, 1-1 against Atlanta, 0-2 against St. Louis. So like a 4-game week so far. Of course, they're playing right now, said it already when I talked about St. Louis. But a lot of concern that they blew those 2 games against the Cardinals where they could easily have won. They split the series with Atlanta. Could have been a 3-1 week, and we would have been talking about a top 8 team of Boston, but the pitching started to show its true colors to me, and that's kind of what I've expected from Boston the whole way. So I'm not surprised to see that. So I'm going to kind of treat it for that it's probably expected. Number 10, we got the Milwaukee Brewers, 1-2 against the Dodgers, and then they swept the Royals. They got to use their aces against the Royals, so I'm pretty pumped about that. But Burns looks solid. And that's pretty much what I like about the Brewers. I think if they send out their good pitching, they are going to win most series, even against the top teams ahead of them here. It's just a little bit of the depth I'm concerned with and the bats, but they're definitely the big favorite to win that division in my eyes. Number 9, we got the Philadelphia Phillies, 2-0 against Toronto, 2-1 against Colorado. They were on a nice little 5-game winning streak there that was snapped today against Colorado, but they got to be excited. They just hit 500 this week. They're 500 today. And they're starting to get back into form. I think it took a little bit of things going. Of course, they were missing Harper at the beginning. We got Trea, who's just joining this team, etc. But Wheeler's looking good. Got to be pumped about that. And their team is just too good that you got to think that they're going to finally figure it out. And it's no surprise that we're about middle of May, and they're figuring it out. They made it to the World Series for a reason last year. Let's not forget about it. Number 8, that opponent they were up against, 2-1. Against the Angels, and then 2-1 over the weekend against the White Sox. So just picking up 2 solid series wins against medium teams. That's what the Astros have to do. They had fallen to the lowest they had a couple weeks ago, and they're starting to show, okay, we're not that bad. We're not that bad. We're going to be in it. We might not be as good as we were in the past. maybe he's starting to get out of that hangover I kept talking about. They're waiting for Altuve to come back. They probably can't wait for him to be back in that lineup, but that team's gonna be a lot better when he's back in there. Number 7 just seems to be kind of solid staying in there. 2-1 against the Padres, 2-1 against the Cubs. Nice series wins for the Twins this week. They're at about 550 win percentage in the division. They got a 3.5 game lead, I think it is. And they should be cruising. Like, they are, in my opinion, the best team in this division. Unless something happens, they start dealing with injuries, which has been a problem in the past. There's that. There's a couple teams ahead of them here that they might be a favorite to make the playoffs over. But I think head-to-head, the Twins do not match up against them as well. And that's why they are where they are. Number 6, welcome to the first row. I know you Orioles fans of the channel are going to be ecstatic to see this. 2-1 against Tampa, 2-1 against the Pirates. 3 weeks ago, these guys were the best teams in the MLB, those two teams, and they win both series. I don't know what else to say. They're in the top row. Maybe they could be higher, but I'm ready to see them keep this going. Keep playing 600 baseball, and you're going to stay here. At the very least, they're cementing their floor that they're not going to drop like crazy. If they go on a 05, 06 week, they won't drop too much. But they're starting to show they've got my attention. Their pitching got my attention this week. They matched up so well against Atlanta the week before, and then they match up well against Tampa, and then they take care of business against the Pirates. Got to be super excited. These Orioles just keep winning. They seem to have the attitude. The locker room seems to be doing something right. Big week for the Orioles this week, though. They go against the Angels and Toronto. So I'm excited to see that because that's pretty much a matchup between 5 and 6. Because dropped Toronto down one spot, and it was more because the 0-2 series against Philly. Did not like what I saw there. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that Boston series. There are some games that they should have won, and they blew it. So a little bit of concern there, but they did bounce back, and they've seemed to be doing that when they have a tough series. They bounced back huge against Atlanta, the massive sweep over the weekend. That's it, going with a complete game shutout, so that's huge. Jays, just that inconsistency does keep me a little concerned to keep them in the top 4, I guess. Number 4, moving up a couple of spots, we got the Dodgers. 2-1 against Milwaukee, 3-0 against the Padres. So these top 4, I had a lot of time. I did a lot of struggling here. But I really thought about it, about more than just the first week, more than just the past 2 weeks. I kind of looked at the whole season as a whole. The Dodgers were a little slippery at the beginning. I did have my concerns early, but they quickly rectified those to me. That's why I put them in 4th, but we're going to talk about these other teams. I'll talk about number 1, 2 when we get there. But number 3, we're just going to stick them right where they were last week. 2-1 against Seattle, 3-1 against Oakland, just beating both division rivals. A big series win against Oakland. They lost one, but I'm not going to hold that against them. This team continues to roll. Still 15 days or 2 weeks or extension on that DeGrom injury, so some concern there, but the Rangers continue to win. By far the favorite in that division for me. Number 2, we got the Braves. 1-1 against Boston, 0-3 against Toronto. Now, could have given it a hit for Atlanta for that series. They're on the road. Not super concerned when a team goes on the road and they kind of have these 2 games. They have 2 games that they're leading at some point in here. At an earlier series against Baltimore last week that they took a nice W in, so pretty much had to take that into consideration. And they've been playing super solid all season long. So I wasn't going to hold this one series sweep that they just had against them too much. Mind you, I'm going to keep it in mind going forward, and if that kind of trend continues, then we're going to see them not stay in that spot. And the same kind of talks with number 1. We got Tampa Bay Rays. They went 1-2 against Baltimore, 2-2 against the Yankees. So not the best week for our number 1 seed. It was really the first time all season that I kind of had to sit there and think, do they still deserve number 1? I shuffled it around a little bit. I think I had another team sitting there, and I was like, no, I couldn't do it quite yet. But I'm ready to believe that there might be a different number 1 in the league based off this past week. If we look at teams that Tampa Bay's kind of played, we got to remember early in April, they had the easiest schedule in the entire MLB. That's kind of where that win streak happened. That's kind of why they got off to such a kick-ass start. We got to remember they played Houston. They won that series, but it was tight. They lost the series to the Blue Jays. They lost the series to the Orioles. So, All it takes is some of these better teams to keep winning them. And with Rasmussen going down with that injury in that past game, a lot of concern there if the pitching depth is going to be there to keep them on top. But guys, let me know what you guys think. A lot going on in this board. But there's obviously a lot of things that can shift around in certain areas. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, guys. We'll see you out there for that next video. Thanks for watching.